All right, so we're going to continue to move forward here. This is the segment where we are looking for active commentary. As always, we encourage active commentary throughout the entire process here. If you have any questions, raise your hand. But on this one, we are very happy to say that we have some site cleanup PFAS updates for you. Those will be delivered by John Ziegler, who's our statewide coordinator on the PFAS matters. But also our strategy is to also start rolling out a series of questions that we have received over time, and John's going to get into that. We have a full set compendium of those questions, and we're going to start using this forum to continue to roll out questions in our proposed answers to those questions. So we are inviting you to weigh in and comment, whether it's chat or otherwise. And I just would like to say that this is, as you all know, our efforts is not just throughout the regions and offices in Boston and just site cleanup. This is one where the commissioner has invited us to the table on a bi-weekly basis and sometimes monthly basis to ensure that we are talking all of the offices, all of the bureaus. We are coordinating our efforts, and it's a very intentional, deliberate approach to addressing PFAS across all media. So today we're going to be very specific about our discussion, that it's more rooted on the waste site cleanup program, but clearly it has a lot of nexus with other work currently being performed by the Drinking Water Program and Bureau of Water Resources, as well as ORS. So with that, John, take it away.
Thank you, Millie. Good morning, everyone. For those who haven't met me, I took on the role of the statewide PFAS coordinator in March of this year. And as you may be aware, this is a new position within Boston's Policy and Program Development Division, with the aim to coordinate and bring consistency to Bureau Waste Site Cleanup's PFAS efforts. Just as a bit of background regarding me, I've been with DEP for over 20 years. Those who know me know that I was formerly the audit section chief in the Western Regional Office for 16 years, and then the acting deputy regional director for the in Bureau Waste Site Cleanup with the Western Regional Office for a year and a half prior to joining the Policy and Program Development Division. My sole focus now is PFAS, and so I would ask if, please don't hesitate to reach out to me or our regional PFAS contacts with any PFAS questions or areas that you think need our attention. Always happy to engage with all of you. My plan for this morning is to provide, as Millie indicated, an update on waste site cleanups, PFAS-related activities, and I want to touch on a few areas that we are prioritizing. We have gotten a lot of questions regarding EPA's rollout of the PFAS MCL final rule, which was finalized on June 25th, and how that might affect MCP standards. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit more detail. I also want to update everyone on our continued efforts to address imminent hazard conditions in private water supply wells. As you all know, the imminent hazard concentration is currently equal to or greater than 90 nanograms per liter for the 6 PFAS compounds. So I want to update you on that and just talk briefly about our source discovery efforts. And just to reiterate, we are always available to provide technical support to all of you. We have done some audits also of MCP response actions involving PFAS. Most of those have been focused on the immediate response actions being conducted or phase 2 comprehensive site assessments. Another priority for us is the development of guidance documents. One thing that is, I think, pretty close to being issued publicly is the CAM protocol for EPA Method 1633. We're just in the final stages of review of that document, and I just want to recognize Liz Denley at TRC, who's been helping lead this effort for DEP. And again, we hope to have this one out soon. I did highlight here the PFAS Q&As, as Millie mentioned. We'll discuss that in a little bit more detail at the end of this presentation. So that's certainly a priority. We know it's something that both there's been an external and internal ask to address some of the lingering questions regarding PFAS. We also have plans to update the sampling and analysis guidance document. That document's been updated several times, with the last update in November of 2023. So we recognize there's some additional detail that we would be looking to provide to all of you on that. And then finally, I just want to call everyone's attention to upcoming trainings and workshops. We are working on various presentations that will be offered at the AEHS Soils Conference at UMass Amherst, beginning October 21st and running through the 24th. I will be presenting at the PFAS workshop on Monday, October 21st. And that workshop will focus on a variety of topics. It includes discussion of analytical methods, product certifications, treatment, remediation. There's a discussion on legal issues, and then I, along with Dr. Mark Smith at ORS, will focus more on risk assessment and addressing PFAS under the MCP. So hope to see many folks at that one. So if I may have the next slide, please. Okay, as I mentioned, we have gotten a lot of questions on what's going to happen with the MCP standards, and so I just wanted to update folks on this. Currently, MassDEP's drinking water program is taking the lead in promulgating a Massachusetts drinking water standard that will be consistent with EPA's federal rulemaking. That process is expected to take up to 2 years to complete. So certainly waste site cleanup, we are coordinating our efforts with the drinking water program to promulgate revised MCP groundwater standards for both reportable concentrations, the RCGW1, and the Method 1 risk standards, the Method 1 GW1 standard, that will reflect the changes to MassDEP drinking water programs, drinking water standards. As many of you know, because the EPA drinking water standards include some additional PFAS compounds that are not currently covered by the MCP, we will include these additional compounds in our standards. And I just want to point out that the final list of PFAS to be regulated is going to be based on a review that's currently being conducted by DEP's Office of Research and Standards, and then input, certainly from the bureaus and the commissioner's office. Just as a point of emphasis, in the meantime, DEP's current MCP standards remain in effect. We are also considering a revision to the imminent hazard concentration of 90 nanograms per liter. So there will be more on that as well. And finally, I just want to add that at this time, we don't anticipate that the MCP soil standards or the GW3 RCGW2 standards will change significantly. And next slide, thank you. So just shifting gears a little bit, I just wanted to take a little time to talk about the PFAS notifications that we've received. This graph shows that for this year, calendar year, we've received a total of 8 PFAS notifications. You'll notice on the graph that in 2019, when the MCP reportable concentrations went into effect, we did see an uptick in notifications, and then there were significant increases in both 2021 and 2022 during the time that both public and private well sampling programs were underway. The drinking water program staggered their initial monitoring requirements across 2021 for both community and non-transient, non-community systems, and they allowed the transient non-community systems to complete their sampling by September 2022. So that's what's reflected where you see the big increases in 2021 and 2022. But after that September 2022 date, all the public water systems should have completed sampling. And so therefore, we shouldn't see them contributing to new notifications at this point. MassDEP also had a free sampling program that we ran in conjunction with UMass that included selected private wells. That program ran between 2020 and 2022. So that's probably also the reason why you see the increase in notifications in 2021 and 2022. The notification. Oh,
So, John, I see a hand. Lisa Camp.
Yeah.
It's a question.
Hi, John. Thanks. I actually had a question about your previous slide where you're discussing that you were considering revision to the imminent hazard concentration. And I guess, could you explain how that is being contemplated in light of the fact that there are not new standards for new PFAS constituents as of yet?
Yeah, currently we are seeking input from the Office of Research and Standards on that. We're pretty early on in that process, Lisa. So I don't have too much to say on that other than what we know is, EPA does have final toxicity data on several of the PFAS compounds that have the toxicity is an order of magnitude. I don't know if it's greater or less, but it's at least an order of magnitude different than what was initially used. So I think the expectation is that the imminent hazard concentration will adjust downward. But we're awaiting input from ORS on what that concentration might be.
Yeah.
I guess I would just, sorry.
The current number being 90 for us, and basically is to ensure that we are meeting our statutory requirement when there is no party to perform response actions or otherwise. If there is an imminent hazard as defined, the way we define it now, and basically it numerically equated to 90, that there's a lot of policy considerations to when arriving at these numbers. Taking everything into consideration. Just the logic is that 90 correlated to the 20 for PFAS 6, and therefore with the advent of lower numbers, we are, as John stated, looking downward. How low, we're not sure. We have a series of choices to be made, and that's where the coordination and discussion, not only with ORS, but also the Commissioner's Office on Policy. That's where it's at right now.
Okay, I guess I would just say that, if you would welcome input from practitioners regarding that, because there's a lot of interrelated complexity. So for example, like on the short form, it's still just like the combined PFAS versus individual toxicity values for each of those separate ones. And the same thing with the GW1 standards. So to me, it seems a little awkward to focus on changing one aspect without, there's a trickle down effect to the other pieces. So if, that could be kept in mind when this is being considered, that would be very helpful.
Yeah, certainly, Lisa, and I appreciate that. I'm not a risk assessor, so I'll defer to our, folks at ORS, but yeah, certainly I'm sure there will be opportunities for comment. Oh, Millie, you're muted. Do you have something?
Susan Chapman has a question.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. It's just on the same slide, so I figured I would pop in. I agree with Lisa too, that this needs to be coordinated, but putting on my public interest hat, which is actually the role I play on the advisory committee, I would encourage, at least the Bureau of Waste Site Cleanup. I can't talk to the drinking water program, but I would encourage them to do this earlier than the 2 years that you have under statutory regulations for EPA. If EPA put these numbers down lower, I think ORS would find out that would agree that this is an important public interest issue that should not wait for 2 years for us to promulgate new regulations. So I'll put that out there. The next thing I just wanted to say is that you said the soil standards would not change, but I would assume that the extra compounds that are added would also have soil standards somehow. So they will change in that respect. I would think that you would have the same list for soils as you would for the GW1.
Yeah, thank you for that comment, Susan. Yeah, I think I was just talking in terms of what's out there, the existing standards. We just wouldn't expect to see those change dramatically. But I think the final list, we're still having a lot of discussion about what the final list of PFAS compounds may be. Certainly we're going to meet EPA's standards, but you're right, there may be additional compounds and additional standards that will have to be developed for those those additional compounds. But
thank you.
For sure. And I think, Susan, all options are on the table, I think, as we get closer to seeing how quickly the drinking water program is moving forward with their derivation of Massachusetts MCLs. One thing to keep in mind is that there's always been a lot of advantage, and I think from a I guess public interest standpoint, our goal has always been to ensure that we avoid any kind of confusion out in the regulated entity and the public. If you have a situation where we're promulgating numbers that are lower, and all of a sudden the drinking water program has the existing numbers, it may also create some unintended consequence with regards to potentially water that's slated for drinking water purposes. And all of a sudden people feeling like, wait a minute, this groundwater aquifer is not up to par with the site cleanup numbers. So I think just trying to ensure that it's an in-step harmonization of the numbers to avoid confusion. But I do agree, Susan, since the advent of these numbers and what the science is telling us, every day we work harder to reach a goal that's sooner rather than later. And we're so fortunate that we were able to launch that UCMR5, the drinking water program launched that UCMR5 sampling of all public water supplies, because it gave us insight with regards to the lay of the land for our Commonwealth in terms of public water supplies. And a lot of other states across the nation are just now starting that process. So I'm just very proud of the efforts from the drinking water program, and we continue to do our part to come out with numbers that are protective and harmonious when it comes to not setting the LSPs, the public, to fail in terms of understanding what are the actual numbers that are deemed protective for the drinking water purposes. But I thank you so much for, that important note to say, keep at it, keep going faster.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, if we can get back to let's go to this one. Just being cognizant of time. Just putting some context to the PFAS notifications. The pie chart on the left just shows what drinking water supplies have been affected by these PFAS sites. It's just over 50% has impacted either a public or private drinking water supply. And the pie chart on the right identifies the sources of PFAS releases. You can see that AFFF is just over 30%. 46% of the sites are from other sources, which could be a landfill or an industrial commercial site. But what you'll notice, we still have nearly 25% of the sites for which no known source has been identified, and that's where we're, certainly focusing our source discovery efforts. And if I can have the next slide, please. And then, of course, environmental justice is certainly a priority for the department. So just, again, giving some context to the notifications, approximately 30% of the PFAS notifications are located within mapped environmental justice areas. And if I may have the next slide, please.
I see a hand from Janine Comerford.
Yep.
Hi there, everybody. Hi, John. Hi, Millie. Just wondering about the source discovery and wondering if DEP was planning to focus on any particular sectors, like dry cleaners, for example.
I wouldn't say that we are focused on any particular sectors, Janine. I'm going to talk a little bit here about source discovery on this next slide, but I can go there now. I mean, essentially what will happen is, we have a few areas where we focus our efforts, and one is we'll get a referral from the drinking water program where there's an affected public well, or we have impacted private wells. Some of those were identified by the MassDEP mass sampling program or other sampling that's occurred, but we're not necessarily looking specifically at a sector such as dry cleaner sites. It's more focused on what are we seeing in the wells, and that's kind of directing our efforts.
Okay, so you get the notification, and then you work out from that, as opposed to zeroing in on a segment of potential releasors.
Correct. That's currently how we are addressing these right now.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Okay. So let me just talk. I mentioned imminent hazard. Response is certainly a priority for us, and I just wanted to address this a little bit. So when MassDEP is addressing an imminent hazard condition in a private water supply, this of course would be, we don't have a source property, so no PRP, no identified source. There's an imminent hazard condition in a private water supply. Well, MassDEP will step in. We currently are maintaining 54 point of entry treatment systems, and we provide bottled water to an additional 33 locations at this time. Our POET systems, what we've chosen to install are granular activated carbon-based point of entry treatment systems, where connection to a public water supply is not available. I mean, certainly that would be preferred if we could make a connection, but where we're unable to, we are using the granular activated carbon-based POET systems. As an immediate step, when we identify an imminent hazard concentration, we will provide bottled water to that location until such time that the POET system has been installed and demonstrated to be effective. Certainly prior to system design, we're going to collect baseline water quality parameters to aid that design. And just in general, the POET systems that we've installed consist of 2 carbon vessel lead lag systems with sampling ports for raw water, midfluent, and effluent. We typically, for the granular activated carbon, are using bituminous coal, although we have used coconut shells in a few instances where we've had issues with discoloration in the effluent. It does appear, just anecdotally, it appears that the coconut-based carbon may not last as long as the bituminous, but I think that certainly would need more study before we can make any final conclusions about that. I think there's been some papers out about that as well, but that may be something that we need to look into a little further. And just on the poets, we will go ahead and sample them generally on a quarterly basis. And then we change out the granular activated carbon whenever we see detection of PFAS in the midfluent sample. The other thing I just wanted to point out, something that has come to our attention recently for one of the sites where we're installing a POET, is the presence of radon in a water supply, which may require pretreatment, which is typically aeration. And, you know, we're recommending to our regional offices that they consider radon as one of the water quality tests to have performed prior to design. And this is because radon will block the absorption sites and may reduce that loading capacity for PFAS, such that you'll be needing to replace your carbon more often. There's also another issue where the decay of radon may create a radiation hazard inside the home, or you know, could lead to disposal issues for the spent carbon. Our contractors have recommended that we consider radon pretreatment at radon concentrations exceeding 5,000 picocuries per liter. You know, I've seen a paper coming out of someone at the University of Eastern Finland in the journal Water Supply that also indicated that roughly 5,000 picocuries per liter represents a potential radiation risk for the GAC-based systems. And I just as a matter of context, the ORSG for radon is 10,000 picocuries per liter. I know that's based on consumption, and then other New England states, Connecticut, it's 5,000 picocuries per liter, and New Hampshire, 2,000 picocuries per liter. And I think, were there a couple of questions in the chat?
I just, Lisa was wondering about the 14D for landfills, and I'm just here to say that 14D is part of the solid waste COC. And we've had some situations where leachate or groundwater emanating from a landfill just moving past the perimeter monitoring wells. We've identified through site discovery impacts down gradient in private wells. So 14D has been sampled. So it's nothing new unless there's something that Lisa wants to bring up. But again, it is part of the 1,4-dioxane suite. In fact, it's part of the short list for the solid waste program.
Right. So my comment was more on the line for POET design and maintenance considerations, because if you have 1,4-dioxane in addition to PFAS for your POET, what we have seen is that if you're using a GAC system, you know, we've had to adjust and install like an additional tank, as well as we've noticed that the breakthrough happens much more frequently.
Yep.
And so for like the typical, you know, if it's just PFAS without 1,4-dioxane, you're looking at like maybe once a year needing to do maintenance. Whereas if you have the additional contamination with 1,4-dioxane, that we're seeing maybe 2 or 3 additional GAC changeouts required. So that's just more for practitioners out there, like just beware that the maintenance requirements can be different.
Yeah, absolutely. I do know we have some experiences and some projects that were brought to the fold and for the site cleanup program to manage as a result of coordination with the solid waste program. So in those cases, we look to the data that's collected from the salt waste program, the landfill program, and then we work together to design a treatment system that accommodates for that, and that is true.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lisa.
Okay, next slide. Okay, so I just wanted to finish up by just, as Millie indicated, we are, working to get a PFAS Q&A document out. We certainly have received, many questions from, the regulated community, DEP staff as well. And so we have begun this document. It incorporates questions that were received by the LSPA in their December 2021 letter to MassDEP. We've heard from some LSPs, some members of the other members of the regulated community, and certainly BWSC staff. We are continuing to receive questions. Our hope is that we can have a document out to everyone that would just represent the first set of questions and answers. There are some questions that we have received that we think may be better suited to be addressed in a guidance document. I mentioned the sampling and analysis guidance document, which will be our next task to get that updated, where we can hopefully go into some more detail than maybe a Q&A can provide. The existing document that we have now, which is still undergoing review internally, we've organized it by the topic areas that you see here. But if there are, we certainly want to hear from you. If there are other topic areas that you think we need to address, or there's questions you have, please reach out to me. And if I can have the next slide, we're just going to just roll out a few of the questions that we've been working on. We've already essentially talked about this one, but it's essentially what's going to happen to the MCP standards as a result of EPA's final rule on a PFAS MCL. And we've gotten many questions on this, so just wanted to reiterate again, the drinking water program is taking the lead in promulgating a revised Massachusetts drinking water standard. We did, Susan, we heard your comment, about the 2 years, certainly, but that's where it stands right now. It may take up to 2 years. The MCP standards, certainly that correspond to drinking water exposures, will reflect whatever the revisions are to the Massachusetts drinking water programs standards. And then we'll at least meet the EPA standards, but there may be additional compounds that are added when ORS completes its review. But for right now, the current standards remain in effect. And if I could have the next slide, please. Just a couple of other questions that are included in the Q&A that we've received several questions on. One is what analytical method does MassDEP want to see now that the EPA method 1633 has been finalized? As I mentioned, we are very close to issuing the CAM protocol for method 1633. That is the preferred method when conducting MCP response actions. So we would expect that most people would use method 1633. And then kind of a follow-on to that, we've gotten questions about when doing investigations, must you include all the compounds reported by that method, or can you use a subset? Our position would certainly be if you are in the midst of your initial site characterization, it should include the full analyte list. And of course, if there is specific knowledge where you can where you could reduce the list, you could certainly do so. But in general, we would want to see the entire reporting list for method 1633, which includes 40 compounds. And if I could just get the final question that we have just to roll out to you today, there's been questions about point of entry treatment system and the use of a reverse osmosis for homes with private water supplies contaminated with PFAS. One thing to keep in mind is that under the Title V regulations at 310 CMR 15, discharge of wastewater from a reverse osmosis system is prohibited. You may be able to discharge it to a municipal sewer system, but we would recommend that be discussed with the municipality. And I think that's all, Millie. So again, just priorities. Again, I just want to emphasize some additional training and updates that we'll be doing. Again, I'll be at the AEHS conference at UMass in October, so hope to see many of you there. And again, the workshop is Monday, October 21st, that both myself and Dr. Mark Smith at ORS will be presenting at, along with others. And with that, I'm happy to take any other additional questions or comments. I think we're a bit over on the time I had allocated, but
No, it's good stuff, John. And while folks are formulating any potential last questions before we migrate into our next topic, I just wanted to report, we've been watching the PFAS omnibus bill, and we will continue to be active on that front. And our activity period will probably take place in the new legislative sessions, particularly January 2025 timeframe. No, as you all know, the bill did not pass both the House and the Senate. It was not signed into law by the governor, so therefore it will need to be refiled for consideration next legislation. But it's a very important bill, and clearly one that will provide for so much more work to be done in this arena. So I just wanted to close the loop on that one. Thank you, John. And we will be using this forum and even perhaps to expedite the process, using the monthly call forum to also continue to roll out questions. So.